Look at that timing. Perfect. Happy Monday, everyone. I hope everyone is enjoying their week so far. I know it's getting really hot here in Texas, so summer is here. I hope everyone's staying cool where you are, if you're also in the South. So yeah, we're going to kick off our call here. We're right at 1 o'clock, and I'm co-hosting with the lovely Ariel Zhang today. She's the VP of National Programs with Humane Rescue Alliance. And I'm Claire Callison. I'm Director of National Operations for Austin and American Pets Alive. Great to see everyone. If you're new, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat if you've never been on this call before. We'd love to see where you're coming from and your name. Yeah, what organization you're coming from. We will start today with a question of the day. We have an incredible speaker today, which we're going to learn a lot about leadership and workplace and culture development. So this is a little fun question I have, and I think Amber's going to put in the chat, but what's one skill you haven't learned but have always wanted to develop? So it doesn't have to be work related necessarily. It can be on your personal time. One skill that you've wanted to learn but haven't been able to develop or wanted to develop. And I saw earlier, we got a cheat on this, a head start. There was a lot of musical instruments and languages, which I am right there with you. So great, thank you. Throw those answers in the chat. Yeah.
They're so cool. Meanwhile, I'm over here, I'm like, I just want to learn how to really use Excel someday.
I know.
I want to be able to not call my husband and be like, fix this.
Oh my gosh, I'm right there with you. The number of times I've had to Google how to do things in Excel, so many times, like on a daily basis.
Oh, you're better than me. You Google and are still self-sufficient. I just call someone. I call Lifeline. I'm just like, someone do this for me, please.
Fix this spreadsheet. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love it. This is great. Thank you. Chat is blowing up. I just bought this book. It's called something like How to Do Things. That's all it's called. Just like how to do little hobbies, how to do little tasks. So I'm real motivated on this. And we're going to learn a lot today, I know, from Jose. I'm so excited for this. So thanks, everyone. I'm trying to go through the chat to read all of these. Keeping plants alive is a good one. Ariel, do you have any that are on your list? Are you good at keeping plants alive?
First of all, no, I am not. And worse, I'm not good at keeping plants alive without getting bugs in them.
Oh.
I'm currently fighting through, one of my plants is sitting outside, probably not making it, because I brought home a basil plant and got an infestation. So that's my life. I'm not good at that. And honestly, Claire, I feel like Googling is the talent these days.
Okay.
Like Google is a skill.
It is. If anyone saw my Google history, it's like 2 sentences long, like very long, asking for help. Google, please.
Well, and now soon to be AI prompting, right? I'm trying to learn how to write AI prompts so that ChatGPT can be a friend, even though it's probably going to destroy the world. But I digress.
Yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh, I love it. Great. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we've got some Maddie's grants to announce, community conversation grants. Is that right? Is Amber EB going to do that today?
Hello. Yes, thanks, Claire. Good morning, everyone. We do have some grants to announce. And one thing I hope to be better at someday is just being super smooth on Zoom and sharing my screen and all that. So why don't we try that today? Hold on 1 second. Let's see. All right, does everyone see my PowerPoint? Oh.
It's just loading. Let's see. Not yet.
I think I've frozen. So sorry if I look weird. Hold on, let me turn off my video.
You're not frozen.
Oh, I'm not. Okay.
No, I don't think so. Ariel, can you see the screen? It might be mine.
Hold on 1 second.
No, I can't see it either, but Amber, if you want to unshare and then try resharing again.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry, everyone. My computer's just totally frozen. That's what I jinxed myself. Oh, how about that? Can we see it
Yes.
now?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yay, awesome. All right, so first we are doing our weekly community conversations grant. So we have 2 winners of $5,000. And the first one is Nancy Cullens from Bella Vista Animal Shelter, which is in Bella Vista, Arkansas. And we also have Donna Miller from Happy Stripes Cat Rescue in Medina, Ohio. And then let's see who our winner is for the Maddie's Pet Forum $3,000 grant. So we have one winner of $3,000, and that is Bonnie Hiladitis from North County Animal League in Morrisville, Vermont. Is anyone who won on the call today?
Nancy from the Bella Vista Animal Shelters here. Thank you guys so much.
Oh, hey, Nancy, congratulations. You have a
Thank
great
you.
hair color too, by the way.
Well, thank you. I try to make sure that everybody can find me in the crowd. So I'm like, just look for the one with the purple hair. You'll find me.
That's what I say too. Awesome. Congratulations, Nancy. Bonnie, anyone else on the call? Well, great.
Did you say my name? Did you say Donna Miller?
Donna Miller from Happy Stripes Cat Rescue in Ohio. Is that you?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Congratulations, Donna.
Wow, this is amazing. Thank you so much. We
Totally.
need to get a catio built for some of our ferals to recover in.
And it looks like you have great weather out there in Ohio for kitties to go outside. So that sounds like an awesome use of the funds. So Donna
Thanks.
and Nancy, Irene and I will reach out to you later this week. And for our other winner, if you are on the call, Bonnie will reach out to you as well. Congratulations, everyone. And Irene's going to drop the link in the chat to sign up so your organization can win the grants as well. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amber, and congratulations to all the winners. I'm so glad to see Nancy and Donna were able to hear it live. Caught you off guard there. So happy Monday. That's exciting. And also for the cats and the new catio. So with that, I will open it up for national updates. Does anyone have any national updates? Feel free to unmute now.
Hello, this is, oh, no, go ahead.
Vincent, you go first. I'll go next.
All right. Good morning, everybody. First of all, Amber, good luck on getting that helicopter landed that you are flying in today. Secondly, some of y'all got that. Secondly, just reminding everybody, we have I am the director of the Maddie's Human Animal Support Services Project, for those of you that don't know. And we have an upcoming webinar called From Intake to Outcomes, Managing Summer Space Crises with Animal Case Management. Our American Pets Alive team, Mara Hartsell will be doing that webinar, and please register as soon as you can. We'll put that information in the chat. Our webinars have really been blowing up, so I'm hoping to see all of you there. Thank you.
All right, I am Suzanne and I am with Good Pup. And I just want to let everyone know our spring series on surrender prevention. Uh-oh, wait, did I not unmute there? I did. Okay, sorry, I'm getting some feedback at my end. Apologies if you're getting feedback at your end too. We're wrapping up our spring surrender prevention series. Its final installment will be Thursday, June 22nd, 2 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be reactivity towards unfamiliar people. I'll go ahead and I'll put the link that you can register at for Eventbrite in the chat. You're welcome to share that link. All of our webinars get recorded. They'll be available on our website live after the event. I'll have that link in there. We're going to take a short break just after that one for the summer, but we'll be back in September. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Suzanne. Candace, do you want to go next, and then we'll move to Alina?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Candace Hinkle. I am the Assistant Director for the Program for Pet Health Equity. And I wanted to let you all know that we are looking to hire 2 directors of community engagement, one in the Reno area and one in Las Vegas. So if you know anyone in those areas, I can put a link to our job description, and we would love help getting the word out.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alina Luna, and I'm the Dean of the Circle of Learning and Leadership over at CARE. We wanted to ask you to save the date for CARE's The Gathering event in Philadelphia, and it's going to be from October 4th through 7th. So please follow our Instagram page for early details, and I will put this also in the chat. Thanks.
All right, do we have any other national updates? Going once, going twice. All righty. If you have any other updates that you're thinking of, feel free to put it in the chat. So I'll hand it over to you, Ariel.
Thanks, Claire. Okay, I am super, super excited to introduce José Ocaño. I have so much respect for him personally and professionally, but he is the founder and CEO of Hatching, a consulting firm focused on personal leadership and workplace culture development. And today he is going to be talking about intentional leadership, leading with radical acceptance, curiosity, and compassion to engage and retain employees. And I will not take up any more time. I'm going to just pass it over to you.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I love you dearly, and I respect you just as much. It is such an honor to be on here with all 227 folks, and so many folks that I know, many of you that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet. So my name is José Ocaño. I currently live in Los Angeles, but I'm from Tucson, Arizona. It's where I was born and raised. Good Mexican boy. So I'm going to give you a quick 2-minute background for those of you who I'm just meeting on here for the first time, but I don't want to make this like the Jose background show either. But, I worked in this industry for over 17 years. I started off as a kennel attendant and euthanasia technician at a large open admission shelter in Tucson. And I was lucky enough to work my way up to become the director. And it's alongside a bunch of people who are not on this call who deserve all the glory. We're able to transform that shelter into a model shelter. And Pima Animal Care Center is one shelter that I believe many of you know about. Kristen Auerbach, now Hassan, was a director there when I left. And so I know she's very involved on these calls and has been in the past, and usually would talk about a lot of the programs at Pima. So I worked there. And the last about 5.5 years, I was working for Best Friends Animal Society. And in my last role there, I was the senior director of people and culture. So essentially, my role was to help make Best Friends the best place to work. I oversaw HR, leadership and development, employee experience, all of our culture initiatives. And for me, people have always been very center to everything that we do here. And so I'm really grateful that around January, it was time to make a change this year. And let me back up real quick and tell you that last year actually was one of the hardest years of my life. It was the hardest year of my personal life. And it was also one of the hardest years of my professional life, because usually those two things are very much intertwined, which is what I'm going to talk a lot today. So you'll hear me talk about personal, professional, because we are a whole human at work and at home. And so last year, part of what was difficult for me is my mom went to hospice, and I was with her for her final several weeks on this planet. And that was a beautifully painful, humbling experience. And in that time, I was able to just really reflect and connect a lot of dots for me. And one of those dots is, what has made me who I am? What has made me someone who has been able to maintain my sense of peace, my sense of loving people and community, while still working in a field that is really traumatic and really difficult, where we are on triage mode, urgency mode, drinking from the fire hose all the time, And what I realized through being with my mom is that it was a process of radical acceptance, curiosity over judgment, forgiveness over resentment. And all of those things made me a more compassionate person. And being more compassionate and living the world through a compassionate lens, the world that feels literally like it's on fire, I'm still able to preserve some peace so that I'm operating from that place, because I'm trying to make an intentional effort to not operate from my trauma, from my unconscious bias, from the things that do not serve me. And so as I was reflecting last year, I knew that it was time to make a change in my life. And that change was to start hatching. And at hatching, you know, what I like to say is that we help people live and work better. In a sentence, we help people live and work better. And so today is all about that. And that's what I want to spend the next, 30, 40 minutes with y'all, just talking a little bit about. So before I launch into some of these things, I just have to say this presentation is dedicated to my mother. This is for her, because I am because of her. And so much of what I'm going to be sharing with you are things that come from community, come from the wisdom of my mother, from my grandmother, from growing up in the barrio of Tucson, Arizona. And so that's what I'm going to be offering you today. So the framework that I want to talk about is, there's three things, and I'm going to walk through all three things. The first is, who you are is how you lead. Fundamentally, who we are, who we believe we are, our actions, all of those things, how we make people feel, that is part of the legacy of who we are. And who we are also directly informs how we lead, right? And when I talk about leadership, that's number two, how we lead, how we make decisions, how we communicate those decisions, how we accept and receive feedback, how we leverage the power that we have over the people in our charter, and how we steward that with such thoughtfulness and centering them in the process of the power that we hold over them. Because the third thing is, who we are informs how we lead, and how we lead informs the experience of people at work. And that's culture. It's our collective experiences that we're having, in large part by the people in power who are making the decisions. When do we show up? How much do we get paid? What does our workload look like? Do we get promoted? Do we get disciplined based on showing up as our real authentic self? These are all the structures. So that's the framework I'm going to be walking through today. So I'm going to start with, because what it is we're trying to solve a problem, right? So when I was thinking about today, I thought about, there's so many things I could and I want to talk to you all about. But what is something that is valuable? And when I think about the conversations that I'm having personally or in forums like this, I continue to hear this theme of people are struggling. Shelters are struggling. And I was thinking about a post that was written on the Haas website a few weeks ago, and it was a question that's like, what advice would you give to your younger self? I don't know if any of you remember that. It had like 250 comments, so many comments. And if you go through the comments, the number one theme is like, take care of I would tell myself to take care of myself. I would tell myself to be more aware of just what I can control and what I can't control. And so I thought that that was really interesting. And so I started to think a lot about burnout and how burnout can create cultures that are toxic, and how those cultures are hard to retain people. And so you see a system at play that perpetuates itself, and it's like the hamster wheel is on fire and everyone is just like, help. And so what I'm hoping to offer today are some things that I want you to start to think about. I don't have a silver bullet of like, after this presentation, you're going to leave and everything's going to be solved. Because the work I'm going to be talking about is deep, and it requires slow change over time so that it is sustainable. And it's more that I'm going to offer you questions to ask yourself than answers to give you, because we're all different. Our communities are different. Our lived experiences are different. And so no answer is going to resonate with everyone, but questions are things that I think are pretty universal and that can really help everybody. And so that's what I'm going to be focusing on today, is the framework of radical acceptance, curiosity and compassion, and that has helped me throughout my career, and most recently helped me bridge the most important thing, which is this relationship with my mother as she was leaving this earth. And so that's what we're going to be spending a little time talking about today. So I have notes for myself. So I already started with, right, who you are is how you lead. The foundation to this is self-awareness. And so I'm going to tell you right now off the bat, you have one action item, one call to action. I'm going to tell it to you now, and I'm going to tell it to you throughout. And it is to create space to think, feel, and plan. So many folks, we are just so busy meeting to meeting to meeting, intake. We're constantly going on this urgency to do whatever our mission is, that there's rarely time to just pause and ground ourselves. Take a breath and think, what do I think? Why do I think that? How does that actually make my body feel? Is this what's aligned with my values? Does this feel good? Is this how I want to operate? So people used to joke with me at Best Friends because I had 3 blocks of calendar throughout the week. Each one was an hour and a half, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And it was my think, feel, plan time. And I guarded that as though it was like a meeting with the CEO, my think, feel time, my think, feel, plan time. So that's your call to action. If everyone can find 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever you have capacity for right now, because self-awareness is useless if we don't have time to actually deeply do it and then to do something with it, right? And so self-awareness is very, very much at the center of everything, because when we are in touch with our thoughts, we can then understand, how does this thought make me feel? And then when we understand that feeling, how does this feeling make me behave? What do I do as a result of this feeling? And what are the consequences of that? What are the outcomes of all of that? Because the one thing we can't change a lot are circumstances. Circumstances oftentimes are fixed. I'll give you an example that we'll talk about a little later. Animals are suffering because people are suffering. Suffering isn't fixed, but that is a situation right now. Animals suffer because people suffer. And people suffer for some big macro reasons that we know about. Some of us are good at acknowledging, some others not so much. There's some big things at play. And so when you have a fixed circumstance, the way to manage through that is, how do we think about that? How do we feel about that? And how do we behave based on that? And what is the response around me because of how I'm behaving and how I'm showing up, especially when we are leaders? It matters even more to be conscious and intentional. And I define an intentional leader as a person who practices self-awareness and understands and regulates their behaviors based on the impact that they have on themselves and on others. That's how I define being an intentional leader. It is just being aware of what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and what I'm doing, and how those actions create a whole set of reality for a bunch of other people that I will and will not always know about, right? And so the questions that I ask myself are things like, what are the stories that I'm telling myself here? Everything is about a story, which is why story matters. I mean, we've been doing it since we've been writing on cave walls. Story is one of the most important things, because within a story are our belief systems, right? And there are some beliefs of mine that ground me. My belief that people are good and have the capacity to be good. People want to do good, and they often do good when given the opportunity. Like, that is one of my beliefs. I'm rooted in my belief in people, but I can also be stuck in my beliefs. Like, I'm not good enough. I'm not qualified to come and talk to a bunch of you because I don't have a bunch of initials after my name, right? There are certain beliefs that in the past have kept me from doing certain things that serve me, that allow me to ascend and to help and have a bigger impact. So like, I offer you to ask yourself a question. I ask myself, like, what are my beliefs, and which ones are keeping me grounded versus keeping me anchored like anchor type. I'm going to be anchored like to the bottom of the ocean and you drown anchored, not the good kind. A question I'll ask myself, what do I need to radically accept? And I'm looking at the time. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of the story about my mom and how a lot of this framework came to light. I struggled with the relationship with my mom for most of my adult life. And it was because of my childhood. And the part of my childhood that I was fixated on, it was like years 11 through 18 that were really tough for a number of reasons. And because of that, I grew to become very resentful about it. And so I carried that with me. And believe me, that bled into my work, because what I did to distract myself from all the pain of my own childhood was work. Work. Yeah, I just worked nonstop. I gave myself to a field that needed me. It felt validating because I got to fixate and focus on everyone else's problems except my own. I'm being honest and vulnerable with you. That is what drew me to this field and why I'm pretty good at it, I think. And so for me, when I realized a few years ago that my mom was a not well person health-wise and that she was not going to be around very long, I knew that I had to radically accept her for who she was. That was like the first step. First step was, you are who you are. I need to accept that. You're not going to be this version of yourself that I have made up that I need and want you to be, because that's not reasonable or realistic. And so I had to radically accept that. So I ask you, what do you have to radically accept? And the second phase is when I radically accepted her, I replaced my judgment with curiosity. And so then it became, why are you this way? And actually sitting down and having a conversation with her and learning things about my mother that I had no clue, the things she experienced in her life. And I started to connect the dots and understand why she was who she was and how who she was had actually benefited me because I was being very myopic in what I was seeing in terms of my childhood. Yes, it was hard. And also my mom every single day told me, Mijo, you can be anything you want in life. You can do anything. You're so smart. Like, I swear my mom, anyone, I'd be like, I'm having a problem with this person. And she would just be like, she would get all great, hype me up and all of the things. Like my mom was like my number one fan. She was like, take off her earrings for me, put some Vaseline on any day. My mom had my back 110%. And that was also true. But I had missed that because I was focused on my pain. So when I got curious, I got to see all of those things. And so I replaced my curiosity. And what actually happened was the most important thing that I think we could ever do is it created room for forgiveness. Forgiveness is the most powerful thing we have. We do not offer enough forgiveness at work. We don't offer enough forgiveness to ourselves and sometimes to each other. And so when I was able to forgive her, then I could be compassionate. And I'll tell you the difference that made when I got the call of, I can't do these surgeries anymore. And I want you to come home and I'm going to be going to hospice. And that is the end. That call was the beginning of the end. I didn't feel like I'm going because I have to, because it's a responsible thing to do. I went because I wanted to. And it completely shaped my experience because I was there and had done a lot of the work. And so I was able to be fully present and learn the big, big lessons that life was about to hand my ass, And so compassion is where we do our best work. And so this framework of radical acceptance, curiosity, forgiveness, it leads to this pathway of compassion because we talk about compassion all the time in our field. Compassion fatigue, it's a field of compassion. And I think it's true. I also think we confuse pity for compassion here a lot. We pity a lot of people in situations because pity, there's still a power structure. I pity you. Compassion doesn't, you can't be judgmental and compassionate at the same time. And that's what I'm saying. Like people think they are, but I'm like, it's not true. That's not actually what compassion is. Compassion is love. Compassion is curiosity. compassion is wanting to know. That's something someone told me once. Compassion is wanting to know. And it's transformational. And this framework that I gave you applies to everything because there's certain universal laws that apply to everything. And this is one of them. So who you are informs how you lead. Those are some of the questions. Creating time and space to get in touch. Why do you do this work? Truly, why do you really do this work? Is it to not deal with your own stuff? Is it because you've dealt with your own stuff and it's the greatest expression of how you want to help people? I'm not trying to like say it's one or the other, but I want everyone to be honest with themselves so that we can start being living and operating and leading from the most authentic, intentional place. So leadership. So starts with you, right? Who you are is how you lead. Now, how we lead. This is the second part. This is how we make decisions. That's a doozy in and of itself that we'll talk about. How do we make a decision? It sounds like just a quick bullet point. Think about it. How do you decide who's going to get paid? How do you decide where fundraising is low this year and we have to downsize and we have to cut 10 FTEs, we have to close an adoption center, we have to completely re-strategize. Those decisions have huge implications on people's lives. Huge implication on people's lives. I also think of this as who and what do you promote and punish? One of my favorite definitions of culture is who you promote and who you punish, what you promote, what you punish. So for instance, I've heard of places, I've been exposed to places, I've worked at places where it's like, be well. We want you to take care of yourself. Your employees are the most important things. And then I look at the workload and it's like, no, it's not. I look at how people are being paid. I'm like, no, it's not. I look at like the actual behaviors. I'm like, no. And people, boots on the ground staff are like, this is why we think you're out of touch as a leader, because you're telling us one thing, but you also make us do a different thing, right? And I've done that. I've been on the edge of like, take care of yourself, take care of yourself. And I'm emailing someone Saturday night. So like guilty, right? Self-compassion, forgiveness for self. I used to do all those things. And when I'm stressed and overwhelmed, I will default to do those things. That's why I have to create space to be well, because I will operate outside of my values when I'm stressed, because most of us do. So it's also in terms of like how and what we communicate and how we give and receive feedback, right? All of those things is part of leadership. And I can never not talk about leadership and not talk about power. And this is one of the things that I love about being on my own and being able to, have hatching is I get to talk about all the things that I used to kind of get nervous about talking about, or when I would be in a room and say like, let's talk about the power dynamics in here. And people would just look at me like, what is this guy saying? No, we just want you to like, give us a plan to make everybody happy. And I'm like, yeah, it involves you changing because you are the leaders who set the tone for this entire organization. And power over people, right? I talked about it. We're deciding how much people make. We're deciding when they work. We're deciding what kind of experience they have based on the resources we give them to do their job and how we set them up for success. That is compounded by things like race, sex, gender, sexual orientation, age, disability status, and all of the intersectionality. So there are power dynamics at play, especially in an industry that is predominantly white. If you're a person of color or someone who is not a white woman, honestly, like that in and of itself is a power dynamic at play. And so as you think about being a leader, I want you to know that you also possess power. What are you going to do with it? Is it for good? Or is it reactive? Is it to make yourself feel better and inflame your own ego? I've also been there. That's also been me. Because one of my core childhood wounds is that I'm not enough. That's one of the things that I have to heal for myself. And so unchecked, I can overcompensate because I'm just trying to be good enough for everybody. And so power dynamics. And that's why, because we have power over people, that is why it's so important that we're self-aware and that we are very, very intentional about what to do with this power. So some of the questions that I like to ask myself are, and get clear about, is what are my 3 values? Like, what are the most important values to me as a person, you know? And what behaviors do I exhibit? Show these. Brene Brown has a model that's TOM, teachable, observable, measurable, when she talks about values. So when any of you are doing value work, whether it's for your organization, if they're not teachable, observable, or measurable, it's bullshit that lives on a website. And that's what every one of your staff will say. So if they're not teachable, observable, or measurable, right? Values. And I think about this question on my side: do these behaviors make me trustworthy? Because as leaders, it's all about trust and trust cultivation. And that's why it's important to be vulnerable and to be authentic and transparent and be imperfect, because people don't want perfection. They just want a human being who can acknowledge their own humanity as well, right? And so I'm always asking myself, am I trustworthy? Am I worthy of people's trust? I'm here doing an assessment in Fresno, and I'm just some stranger walking the halls of this place, and people are like, what's he doing here? Is what he's gonna think and gonna inform X, Y, or Z? And so I have a job to cultivate trust while I'm here, so people know what's in my heart is everyone's best interest, you know, and that I'm here to just be curious to understand what they do and not judge it. And so as I end this call and start walking around, I have to think about, what am I going to do and say that's going to cultivate trust in an authentic way and not some phony way that people can see right through. So decisions, how do I make decisions? Especially when I was in my last role at Best Friends and as the director of PIMA, my decisions would create a whole ripple effect. Sometimes I would realize I was making decisions when I didn't even realize it. I'd be in a meeting and I would forget that I'm because I like to think of myself as casual and friendly. And so I forget the power and influence that I have sometimes. And I'll go in and I'll make a suggestion, and people will take my suggestion. And before I know it, there's meetings about my suggestion. There's a plan about my suggestion. And meanwhile, I'm like, oh, I was just said something that was at the top of my head. That wasn't even a well thought out thought, you know? So my last boss, who is this man named Steve Howell at Best Friends, he really taught me how important it is to just be clear. Today, my notes for myself for this presentation is be authentic and be clear. Because I want to channel Steve Howell on he was very, very clear. And so I understand when I'm in a room, what is the power that I hold? And I need to be intentional about what I say, because it can trigger a lot of things that happen. The other thing to ask ourselves is, who has a seat at this table? Who is not? This decision that I'm making, who is it impacting? I want to read something from my phone that I thought was really, really cool. So last night, as per usual, I was in bed on Instagram, and I was on CARE's Instagram watching their story. And CARE had a really interesting series about Planned Parenthood and some things that are happening in Baltimore. And there was this quote that they posted that I thought was appropriate for this too. And it says, when a handful of people decide what is best for the masses, the outcomes are seldom what's best for the masses. And I'm like, oh, that's what so many of our challenges in animal welfare, senior leadership team, executive teams, whatever you want to call it. It's a small group of people who are making decisions on behalf of everybody else. And more often than not, when I go to an organization, there is almost always a disconnect from the most senior to the most junior. And it's because of the way we make decisions. Folks are not at the table. They are communicated the decision and just expected to live with it. And then we're surprised when engagement or the culture kind of is impacted by it. How many of us have had a decision made for us that we're like, it would have been awesome if you would have just picked up the phone? I agree with this decision, but could you not have like clued me in first? That has happened to me so many times in my career. I've had like new jobs before where it's like, surprise, you're not doing this anymore. You're doing this now. Hope you like it. And the reality is like, actually, yeah, it's actually a really cool job. But I did not like the fact that I didn't get to be a part of the decision. That was my life, you know? So I think we need to do work differently. There's a model called holacracy. Most of our organizations are pyramids. And that in and of itself is part of a problem. Holacracies are circles. And circles, it's a model where, for instance, if we were going to make a decision that impacted all of animal care, we would actually get stakeholders from animal care in a senior leadership meeting, and you'd have a blend of folks so that there's the right stakeholders are in there to inform, to give the subject matter expertise, and to also be a part of the decision and communication plan. So often we're so afraid that we can't incorporate that because the idea has to be fully baked and communicated with all the bullet points before we get it out to the general. And when has that ever really worked well? Honestly, I bet there's more times where it doesn't work than times it does work. And it's because we don't include folks in the very beginning. So decisions and power are very, very much tied together. So then I start to think about a second component about decisions. Leading is also about accountability, personal accountability. And accountability, I didn't realize this was really hard. I spent a year with some of the most smartest people trying to define what accountability meant to the organization unsuccessfully. A year later, we were still like, why are we even doing this again? It was one of those conversations where like a year later, you're not even sure why you're doing it. And it's like, that was one of those moments for me. It's like, oh gosh, maybe this is time, you know? And so accountability, what does that mean to you? Would you meet the standards of what that is? So often how we hold people accountable and what we want out of them, we do not hold that same thing necessarily to us. Or we have such a high standard of accountability for us that it's unreasonable, even we don't meet it, or we burn ourselves out in the quest to meet it, that it's impossible for someone else to. So just like, what does accountability mean to you? And do you measure up? And is it reasonable? My favorite model of accountability is reasonable expectations plus adequate support. Could be training, could be money for programs, whatever it is, equals accountability. So reasonable is the key part of a lot of this work. Reasonable. I think about, there's a woman named Susan David out of Harvard, and she's really dynamic, and she does a lot of work on emotional agility. And I'm pulling up my post again if it lets me, because she wrote this thing that I found to be so interesting. She put, burnout due to empathy fatigue is usually not caused by too much empathy. It more likely reflects challenges in emotional regulation, like not enough self-care or holding clear what's in our influence and what's not. So what can we really control versus not? And then my favorite part is, and environments that demand the impossible. That is also one of the things that does not set up accountability, is unreasonable goals, unreasonable expectations out of ourselves and out of others. So before we can be accountable, is what we're expecting reasonable? Something we should ask ourselves. And then of course, with communication, I always like to think like, where are your communication challenges? Who is constantly feeling like they're not getting information? For me, I always saw like our animal care folks. You have folks in an organization who are on email and folks who are not. That is just kind of the way a lot of our systems work. So tailoring communication for what makes sense to people who are hourly staff, who are working with animals, who are never going to be glued to their email for information. So thinking and tailoring your communication for people, not just to like, I checked the box. My whole project plan said communicate to staff. I did it. It's but effective communication means that people understand what's happening and they know what to do next with that. And if the lack of communication or the communication you did created chaos, perhaps there's some room to get a different strategy. And so I think about, again, questions we're asking ourselves for leadership. What do I need to radically accept? And I'll tell you something, I mentioned this a little earlier. I was doing a call once, a few months ago for my old shelter in Arizona. It was an advisory call. And a woman went on the call and said, you know what? I really think what we need are more laws. We need more laws like spay neuter laws and all these laws to like make people be responsible pet owners. And I just was thinking to myself, you're going to struggle forever in this field because you're prescribing a solution that is not, I think, the long-term answer. Because animals suffer because people suffer, and people suffer because of racism, because of white supremacy, because of gender non-inclusivity, because of all of these macro things, socioeconomics, classism, like you name it. These are the big things that suppress people, that keep people marginalized. And there is a direct link, right? And so that is why we have to think and understand that like big term solutions, but also you can't show up to clean the ocean with a mop bucket, you know? And so we have to just be really, I stopped telling myself my job is to like fix the community's animal problems a long time ago. That is like not setting myself up for success. Especially, and that is why it never felt like enough. Why I felt like I was never enough. Stacy's giving me some snaps out there in the audience. And so I just think like radical acceptance is the beginning to peace. It's the beginning to compassion. It's the beginning to be able to be curious. And so what do you have to radically accept about yourself, about your team, about your community? What needs to be radically accepted? All right, let's see. Is this call end in 3 minutes? Is that how this works? Or do I go all the way up? It goes to the hour? Okay, I'm gonna keep going. All right. So again, this is why it's important to create space to think, feel, and plan. So now I want to talk about the third piece. So who you are is how you lead, right? 1, how you lead matters. We just talked about some of the things to think about, to ask ourselves, because that creates an experience, the culture of an organization. And so here's why that matters. I did some math. You've heard, most people may have heard, we spend a third of our lives at work. Here's how this shapes up. The average American works from age 16 to 62. That is 46 years. The average life expectancy is 72 years, which means after we retire, we have about 10 years. We spend the majority of our life at work. And so that's why this matters. And that's why I think we can create a more peaceful world by changing the way we work. Because think about this. I've been lucky enough to experience both things. I've been lucky enough to experience environments and managers and leaders that trust me, that make me better, that challenge me, but love me at the same time. So I know their feedback is in my best interest. And I know what I feel like when I'm in that. I'm juiced, I'm motivated, I'm nicer to my husband, I'm nicer to my friends, I'm more pleasant at the gym and at the grocery store. There's a ripple effect that I have because the place I'm spending the majority of my conscious life is good. Reverse that. It's a tough environment. You feel like it's never enough. You're constantly swimming against the current. You have leaders who don't trust you. They're micromanaging you. They're emailing you on your days off. You're not being paid what you think. They don't have great conversations about pay transparency with you. All of these different things. How did that affect your life? When I was in that place, I was about 70 pounds overweight. I drank too much. I had some really important relationships in my life that were struggling, that weren't prioritized. And I was a shell of the person that I am. I looked successful. I kept climbing the ladder at work. I kept making more money. I started speaking at conferences. All of these things were also happening, but I was not okay. How I was operating was not sustainable. And a lot of that was because of the culture of where I was spending the majority of my time. And so that's why it just really, really matters to do that. So some of the questions that I ask myself about organizational culture is like, why do people come and work here? Getting clear, like what is motivating people to come here? are you making any brand promises? You know, we do these great marketing and recruitment, we do all these things, and then they like come to work and it's not, the reality doesn't match like the cool branding, cool, all the things of what they thought they were going to get into. And what people don't realize is that we make a brand promise. We make a promise with employees when we hire them under a certain pretense. Like, we love our team here. It's very, very community oriented. It like, got to deliver on those things. Does the organization operate by its values? Like, if their value is X, what are the teachable, observable, measurable behaviors on that value? And so I think there's just some of these other questions like, why are people leaving? One of the things I like to do is send exit interviews, like group exit interviews that are anonymous, because it is not safe oftentimes to really give feedback at an exit interview. And there is a lot of good information about that. And so think about, how are you getting information from your past team members about why they left? And are you doing it in a safe way where they're going to actually be able to be honest with you? Because good, bad, or indifferent, in that feedback is what you need to work on, is what we need to work on. And I always think to myself, organizationally, what are the stories that are driving complacency regarding employee engagement? I remember talking to some leaders about, I really was passionate about, like, we need to, like, our animal care staff need this, this, and this, and this. And I was literally told, it's always going to suck. It's always going to be a shitty job. It's always going to be hard. People are always going to bitch and complain. People are always going to leave. Like, there was just like a complacency of, there was no desire to do better because the status quo had just been so deeply accepted. And it's crazy because we reject the status quo when it comes to like, when we're like, what are the things we need to reject in order to save more lives? Like, this industry is built off of like pushing that status quo. We just got to turn it inside. What are the status quos within ourselves, within our own human dynamics, and then within our culture that we need to address? Because all of this is about employee engagement. At the end of the day, right, we have missions that are hard, if not impossible, to execute on without employee engagement. And so just some of the things that drive employees, and this is like data science, this isn't just my opinion, this is Gallup, this is Energage, these are all of these things. Does this organization operate by strong values? Do I feel appreciated and respected here? That's one of the key things for employees of what keeps them to stay. Do I feel included? Am I safe to be myself here? Can I grow here? Meaning, like, can I make more money here? Is there learning and training opportunities here? And are the leaders in touch and in tune with what's happening here? So these are just some of the things for us to start thinking about. And what I hope everyone can understand is just the connection of who you are, how you think, how you feel, how you behave. That informs how you show up and leverage your power, your decision-making, your communication, who you promote, who you write up, punish, essentially. Those are all things that create an experience and a culture. And some of the most important things in that experience is, am I valued? Am I respected? Does this organization do what they say they're going to do based on those values that are written on the website? Does the leadership understand, or are they at least trying to understand? You know, those are all some of the things. And I just want to end with something that I think is really important that I had to learn last year. I am not my job. My value, my worth are not the outcomes of what I produce. I matter because I'm here. You matter because you're here. And I see so much human suffering on the employee field side of this. And I really think we can start to heal if we start to radically accept what needs to be accepted. If we can replace our judgment with genuine curiosity, if we can move away from the resentment and move into forgiveness, all of these things will make us more compassionate, first to ourselves. Self-compassion, how do you talk to yourself? What's that little voice say? Is it nice? Is it doing one of these all day? Is it just telling you all the things you didn't do? Is it encouraging? Are you your own cheerleader, right? All of it is connected, because I believe that when we are operating from a place of compassion as opposed from a place of our trauma, we will not perpetuate and propagate more of the same, more of the status quo that does not serve us anymore. So I invite you all to hatch. That's what hatching is, live better, work better, be better. And so I didn't leave a whole ton of time for questions, but that is what I have for everybody today. Just a little introduction of a framework of thinking, feeling, and planning. So go out there, think, feel, plan, create some time on your calendar. It'll change your life. I promise you, it will change your life.
José, I think I speak for all 200 people on this call when I say we so beyond appreciate you coming to this call, so beyond appreciate your words and your vulnerability. And I think we could literally do this for hours. And I hope that we do. I feel like now is my shameless plug for Maddie's Pet Forum. Charlotte, where you at? Please continue the conversation with José. This has been an incredible way to start the week. And I hope that everyone has the best week, make it intentional. And again, thank you so much for all of this, José.
Thank you. You matter. You are loved. Be well.